This is the Power Break Podcast number 021, an interview with Keith Bowling. We hope you'll stay tuned as we seek to give you a little power in this break to help you succeed in the race of life. Power Break Podcast interview program is meant to bring out stories of perseverance to encourage you to keep pressing on in the race of life. For show notes from today's podcast, go to bobbrubaker.com and follow the link to the Power Break Podcast. Today's show is number 021. As we welcome Keith Bowling. Welcome, Keith.
Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
It's good to have you here. You're here at a recommendation of our man, JT, who said, you need to really interview Keith Bowling. And I'm looking forward to hearing a story of perseverance in your life and started at an early age. Let's back up to that early age and talk about things that happened in your life from an early age.
So from an early age, my parents divorced when I was an infant. And went to live with my father, which was kind of unheard of back then. And grew up kind of, after that, my father just kind of floundered, different problems, and just grew up in a very dysfunctional home environment. So when I was 13, I went to go live at a children's home. And I couldn't know it at the time, but that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Okay, describe for me your life at a children's home. What goes on?
So at a children's home, we actually had 3 homes in Florida at the time.
Okay.
There was one in Tallahassee, one in Tampa, and one in Melbourne. And it was made up not of kids who were in trouble with the law, but just kids who come from broken homes, kids who come from problem backgrounds, who had dysfunction, maybe children live with grandparents because the home life wasn't right. But it kind of, at first it's a little bit difficult, it's a bit of a transition, but then after a while, it does kind of become more like a family. Although, your family vehicle is a yellow school bus. That's a little bit different. There are some anomalies.
So how many kids were involved in the children's home?
So each home had between 25 and 40.
Wow. Yeah. 25 and 40.
So I would share a room with like 4, maybe 3 or 4 other guys, 5 other guys.
Wow.
Depending on the situation.
I suspect while you were growing up, let's see, 13-year-old and putting together many rules, and there has to be rules in a home like that.
Yes. So the morning that I found out that I was going, my brother, I woke up, always been an early riser. I woke up early, my brother got up and was like, hey, you're not going to school today. We've been talking about this children's home thing, and you're going today. And in my 13-year-old brain, I thought, wow, no more rules from my dad. No more him telling me what to do. And then I got up there, and the next morning, I woke up really early, and I could hear the house father getting on to some guys for not doing what they're supposed to do. And I thought, what have I done?
Oh, my.
Yeah, what have I done?
Wow. So how did you adjust to that?
I just adjusted. I don't know how it happened. So I will say there are certain people that make that adjustment period better. So I would say there were 4 people that really were instrumental in that. Number 1 was the founder and his wife. We call them Mom and Dad McCown. Love them to death. Saw him a couple months ago. We had celebrated his 90th birthday. Still stay in touch. Texted back and forth with them this week. Love them. They're fantastic people. The other people would be a couple that have been there for 40 years and just faithful servants. Just love kids. Love ministry, level-headed people, and just they had such a huge impact on my life. So I would say those 2 couples right there really helped make that transition easier.
Wow. What a replacement for mom and dad in the home, but here they are in the children's home, and they have to be mom and dad or aunt and uncle to 25 to 40 kids.
Right.
Wow.
And that's a difficult position to be in, and people a lot of times burn out quickly, but Uncle Harold and Aunt Vonda are fantastic people. I don't know that they ever burned out. I never saw it. They just loved you.
Let's step into their shoes for a moment. Now that you're older and an officer of the law and you can kind of put things in perspective, what do you think motivated them to persevere in this position?
There's no doubt. They loved God, and that was the premise for why they were there. It was a ministry. It was serving. They just wanted to minister to kids, help kids, serve kids. How I don't know how they didn't keep from burning themselves out. They just loved the ministry and love God and love ministering to kids.
Did you feel like every child there felt like they were special to them?
Yes. So they had a retirement not too long ago.
Okay.
A lot of people came out for that and just were able to voice that. Aunt Vonda was just always that person. Even if you were in trouble and you were being disciplined, you knew she loved you.
Mm.
Even if there's something, she was upset because you didn't do something the way it was supposed to happen right. You knew she still loved you. And I think that was just a huge part of having some kind of normalcy in your life. You've got someone that loves you. It's not an institution. It's a place where people love you, people care about you, people want the best for you, and people want you to be the best version of you that you can be.
Let's think about some of the real good experiences in the children's home. As you can look back on those years, some of the things that stand out that are very, very special.
So I would say traveling. We did a lot of traveling. We had a choir.
Really?
We sang.
Oh.
We would travel. There were different churches and organizations would support financially, kind of like a mission organization. And so we would go and we would travel and sing. And we had some fantastic times. There were times where just being out and traveling was an adventure. For most of us, I had never been outside the state of Florida. So to be able to go and travel around and be in different places, we got to visit places. We were in North Carolina on Kitty Hawk on the sand dunes, and we rolled down dunes and we come back so dirty and filthy. But nobody cared. We got cleaned up and we went on about our business and doing things. In times, there was one time that I really remember. We had times that we could go and visit with our family. The family could come and pick you up, take you home for the weekend. During Christmas, it was a longer period of time, about a week. During the summer, they would be able to visit with you for about a week. But I was there just a short time. It was Christmas time, and my dad didn't come up. And so there was just a handful of us left. And we went down and we fished all day long, caught a huge bass. It got away. We dove in after it. We come walking up the hill through this cow pasture, soaking wet in the cold. It was just a fun time,
Wow.
It was just fun.
Wow. Special memories in the children's home.
Yes.
So, look, how many years were you in the children's home?
So I went there when I was 13, and I stayed there until I graduated, and then I stayed on and worked. So the first about a year and a half, I worked mowing grass and maintenance and buildings and things like that. I went off to school for 4 years, and during that time, I would still come home to the home to work, and that was my home.
Mm-hmm.
So during breaks, when everybody would go home, that's where I went. I went back home, and then afterwards, I stayed and worked there until 1994, I think.
Wow.
So I stayed there for several years working
Wow. And today you're an officer of the law.
there. That I am.
Okay. Let's back up to being in the children's home. I'm sure that, there was demonstration of perseverance in their walk of faith from their mom and dad and aunt and uncle. Okay. So how do you connect the dots of learning to be persevering in your life itself just from being there?
So there were a couple of things. Number one, those mom and dad and Uncle Harold and Aunt Vonda, they persevered. They set the example. And there was a time when there was a pretty big battle with the state of Florida about licensing and about can a Christian organization be exempt from state licensing. If you were state licensed, then you had to do things that were against our religious beliefs. And so we saw Dad fight that battle for like 4 years.
Wow.
And fight it all week long, still hold everything together, still keep things going, still have vision for the ministry, come home on the weekends, travel and sing and be in churches and still have that time with the kids. There were times that I've seen him just worn out and exhausted, but still just pushing through. And so I think they set up just a great example of just perseverance. There's a lot of organizations like that. They come, they go. It's hard. It's hard for the funding. It's hard to keep things going. But they persevered. And I think they just set the greatest example of all.
Looking at your siblings within the home, okay,
Yep.
Are there other stories of success and perseverance from those who have graduated?
Yes. So you got Michelle that lives out in Valrico, and she's got 2 beautiful kids. And she come out just a rough life. And she's the best mom. I have no doubt in my mind it's because of the people that got put in her life at the home, and she has some other family members that are the right person at the right time. There's just another girl over in North Tampa, same thing. Married, beautiful kids, wonderful family, loves God, active in her church, works in a Christian daycare. So there's another family over on the East Coast. Were missionaries in Switzerland for years, and due to health problems came back, and now they both work in a Christian school. A couple that work down in Naples now. They're there. They came up through the home, stayed on and worked at the home, taught in the school, helped run the school for a while. Now they're down there just ministering down there. Their kids are grown, kind of empty nesters now. So, but it's neat that we were all together not too long ago. Someone I was really close to, Cindy, in North Carolina now, just keeps on going. Her brother was there. I just found out he's still back in Georgia and doing good. Her parents worked there for a while, and they're retired, enjoying their golden years. So yeah, there's still a lot of stories out there.
So there's hope for children that maybe you think they end up in a children's home, but as we were talking before, you can see the providential hand of God leading you to that children's home. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really thought this was the worst thing that could ever happen. Once I woke up that morning and I heard that there were rules and things to go by, I really thought this was the worst thing that was ever going to happen. I would say probably when I was about 16, there was a time I remember very clearly. We were talking about Joseph and his brothers there towards the end of that narrative, where his brothers realized their dad's died, and they're like, "Man, we're in trouble." You know, Joseph's been nice to us because dad's alive, but now dad's dead, and we're in trouble. And Joseph said, "You guys meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." And that was the first time it ever dawned on me that nothing ever surprised God.
Mm-hmm.
God never slapped his forehead and said, "What happened? I got to come up with plan B." He's never done that. So that was the first time I really thought, okay, if this is what God planned, then the question is not, why, God, why have you done this?
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, all right, God, show me why you have done this. The words are the same, you just ask it differently.
Mm-hmm.
Show me why you've allowed me to go through this. This is your plan. It's the best thing for me. And I might not see it now, but I know it's the best thing. So now you need to show me why.
So looking back on it now, having stepped away from it, can you see some...
Oh, absolutely. So I look back now at where I would be if I would have stayed home, and I see just a lot of tragedy. Number one. Number two, I have the most wonderful family. So I have a wife, I have a son, he's 18. I had no good example of how to be a dad, how to be a husband, how to be a man coming from my home life. And 100% that is from what I learned at the children's home. Wow. 100%. So that, I think, is the biggest blessing. My wife will say to this day, she owes Mom and Dad McGowan a huge debt because I'm the only... I would not be who I am today if it hadn't been for them. So even she can look and see, man, God's hand was in this. God put the right people at the right place at the right time to do the right thing. So that is probably, I think, the biggest thing for me is just being able to see where I could be, where I would be, had not God intervened and put me in the right place.
Oh, that's a great story.
I couldn't see it at the time.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard to see things at the time, but going down the road, you can look back on it. Keith, tell us, many times a mark of a great event is wanting to go back to it.
Right.
and one of the marks here of your being in the children's home is your desire to go back and give back after you have received. Tell us about that.
So we came back 6 years ago, back to Florida, and back to the Bay Area. And we just went out to the home, kind of visited, and they were very helpful in helping us get down here and had some resources that we were able to take advantage of. And so we started volunteering in the kitchen with Aunt Vonda. Love Aunt Vonda to death. Just absolutely love her. So we started volunteering in the kitchen, doing the heavy lifting, doing the heavy cleaning, doing some of the day-to-day grunt stuff. doing dishes. She does dishes every day. So we're like, you know what? We're going to do dishes today. You're not going to have to do any dishes today. We're going to do them all. I don't really like to do dishes that much too. So, but we continue doing that. Now, Aunt Vonda has retired, and I still like to go out. I still like to work in the kitchen. Kids come down for lunchtime, get to chit-chat with the kids. They have actually come out on a field trip out to the Largo Police Department, got to see where I worked. One of the kids saw me, and he was like, hey, wait a second, didn't I see you somewhere before? So, yeah.
Yeah, in the kitchen.
Right? So I really do enjoy going there. I think it's a good ministry. I think they're doing good things for kids. And I think it's time well spent.
Wow, that is a great story. Let's move on to your position now at the Largo Police Department. How long have you been there?
I've been here for about 6 years, 6.5 years.
Okay. And you are a patrolman, you say?
I am.
Okay.
I work on patrol.
What does that entail?
So you get there in the morning and you copy calls, and in between copy calls you can do follow-ups on maybe cases that you're working, find trouble places where there might be some traffic issues. If there's been a lot of crashes in the area, work some traffic in that area, try to hopefully slow the speeders down, make it a safer area for people. But I absolutely love patrol. I've had an opportunity to do a lot of different things. I worked K-9, loved working K-9, just being able to see the dog work. This is a creature God made, and He made him a certain way. And you can sit back after some training and watch him. See, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. It's just an amazing thing to watch.
Yeah.
A lot of great things I've had the opportunity to do over the years. But I love patrol. I love not knowing what that next call is going to be. When you get dispatched out to it, you think you know maybe, or you have an idea, but you get there and it may be exactly like you thought. It may not be exactly like you thought. I love being in a situation where there's chaos and you get to see it all come under control, and kind of all the chaos becomes organization, I guess.
Yeah. There's been talk over the past years that sometimes people point to police officers. There was a real downplay of it, and I really felt like during that time, the vast majority of people really did have respect for police officers, and really, I know that I've talked to JT about this, and we said we pray for our officers, and do you get the feeling like the majority of the people do have respect and appreciate what you do?
I think so. I think they do. I think the majority of people appreciate us being there and are respectful.
Well, you mentioned that the fact that you enjoy your job, which is that's the key to it, and that is one of the keys to persevering in your work. How would you say that when you get up in the morning that obviously you feel like you enjoy it, but it is a God sent for you. God has you in that place. Is that a motivation for you to be persevering at your work?
I think so. I grew up in a time, and when I first entered into the church, that people that worked in church work were really special, and God loved them a whole lot extra, and everybody else, God loves you. But it didn't come into later in life that, God loves me, whether I'm a police officer or whether I'm in Africa, handing out Bibles to people. God still loves me right here, right where I'm at. And I've had an opportunity to do a lot of different things, a lot of good things. But I really do feel like I'm right where I need to be. This is where God wants me. I'm doing exactly what I feel like I should be doing.
That's interesting. That was what Martin Luther taught. He was one of the first ones to teach about the vocational calling of God as well. So, and that vocational calling is not necessarily pastor, missionary, whatever. It's also whatever you're doing in the daily grind, that God has you there, as it says in Colossians, we to do whatever we do to the glory of God. So, I appreciate what you do and appreciate your story, Keith. Is there anything else you'd like to bring out about your life with the children's home and things you might have learned, or do you ever look back on that with regret on any way?
No, I don't.
That's good. That's good.
So, I think there's time. I don't want to give the impression that, there was this eye-opening moment, and from there on out, everything was good. Because there's still struggles. Right. There have been struggles. And when I was in my 20s, my mom kind of popped back up in our life, and that was very chaotic. And there were still struggles with that I still had to work through. But it's the bigger picture. when you talk about perseverance, you're really looking at the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger picture is not this little thing that I'm going through today, but all of this. My life is an entirety. So I think sometimes we hear a story like that and we think, wow, man, God gave you the victory, and isn't that great? Or, there was that turning point, and everything after that was good. But there were times where I still had to afterwards say, all right, God, I know you're in control.
Mm.
You might still have to just show me right now. So
You mentioned when we were talking before we hit the record button that one of the scriptures that stands out to you is 2 Corinthians chapter 1, where the Apostle Paul says that God's the one who comforts us in all of our tribulation. He says that he comforts us so that we're able to be able to take what the way He's comforted us to comfort others in their trials.
absolutely.
Have you had that opportunity to minister to other young people now that you've been through something like this?
Yeah, so I've been able to work in youth programs.
Mm.
I worked at the children's home for years after I graduated. After I went to college, came back and worked. And worked in youth programs for years. And then also where I work now, there's times we come into contact with kids that are in crisis. And I think there is a time that I can sit down and say, look, I know it's bad. There's problems, but it doesn't have to always be this way.
Mm-hmm.
There is that time, just working patrol, that you come in contact with kids in crisis.
I can just imagine that. Yeah, you come across people all the time. Yeah,
I think it is. I think there's a different dynamic when I can say, look, I lived in a children's home. I know what it's like to not have your mom there. I know what it's like for your dad to never show up on Christmas or not show up during the summer to pick you up. I know what that's like. But this is not the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, Keith, thanks so much for being on our program today.
Well, thank you, sir.
It's really been a pleasure to talk to Keith Bowling and hear the story of a man who, as a child, was sent to a children's home, but as the children's home turned out to be a great blessing.
Exactly right.
It taught him lessons of perseverance, and today he serves our community in the Largo Police Department and is a blessing to our community. And as he says, he looks out for opportunities to comfort others with the comfort with he has been comforted of God. Thanks so much, Keith.
Sure, thank you.
It's been a real pleasure.
And I will say, JT, I work with JT. He's an awesome guy. He's a real deal.
He'll be glad to know that. And he cooks a real good steak, too.
Well,
so.
I don't know anything about that. So.
Well, thank you for joining us for today's Power Break podcast, number 021, an interview with Keith Bowling. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review and a rating wherever you have downloaded the podcast. And be sure to check out the show notes, news, books, and the weekly the weekly Power Break blog, and other things at BobBrubaker.com. And listen next time for the Power Break podcast.